Hello and welcome to Mansell Raceway on the 30th of October 2022. It's time for round 4, the penultimate round of the two Counties Kart Club Championship, and the Formula Blues are lined up on the grid ready to go for their final. A few returning faces and a couple of new ones as well should make this a very interesting race to watch. Earlier in the day, Devon Giles continued his run in the Two Counties Honda Cadet Championship, taking a maximum score. Likewise, Reese Reed in the juniors, with Mitch Carpenter and Rudy Winslow Morton sharing second and third places. Only a point separate them, ahead of Sam Mitchell, Jamie Bradfield, Ben Gillett and Jamie Dart completing the class. And now in the seniors coming into this round is Anthony Cleal leading the championship by a single point ahead of number 2 Mike Bell. Joey Foster a further 2 points back in third ahead of Kevin O'Neill. Paul Alexander is going to make up the top 5 ahead of Steve Groves, with Harry Smithson, Chris Underhill, David Waldron and John Hartshorn making up the top 10. Rob Mortimer is 11th ahead of Ron Schoen. David Good even on points with Max Gunter, and then Alex Kemp will going to complete the top 15 ahead of Tom Parker, Mark Church, Chris Lord, Mark Cook and Kieran Quirk. In the Formula Blue Masters subclass, it's going to be Anthony Cleal leading the way, 3 points clear of Joey Foster in second. Kevin O'Neill third ahead of Paul Alexander and Steve Groves. Chris Underhill 6th ahead of David Waldron, Rob Mortimer, John Hartshorn and Ron Schoen going to be completing the top 10. David Good in 11th ahead of Alex Kemp, Mark Church, Chris Lord and Alex Fortune rounding out the top 15 after a strong performance at Forestedge. In the Blue Veterans subclass, it's going to be Anthony Cleal leading the way on 0 points. Kevin O'Neill in second ahead of Paul Alexander, even on points with Steve Groves, only separated on countback. David Waldron's going to make up the top 5 ahead of Chris Underhill. Rob Mortimer 7th ahead of John Hartshorn, Ron Schoen and David Good. Chris Lord in 11th ahead of Paul Dybel, Bill Shears, Robin Stones and Fred Powell going to be completing the top 15. And Kevin O'Neill continuing his perfect run last time out at Forestedge, going to be leading the Blue Legends. Chris Underhill 2nd ahead of John Hartshorn, Ron Schoen and David Good. And Ron Schoen's going to be leading the Blue Top Weights with a sole 3 points. Rob Mortimer in second ahead of Tom Parker, with Phil Shears and Fred Powell even on points to make up the top 5. In Heat 1 today it was a wet affair, but Joey Foster went on to slicks last minute to take the win. Likewise did returning driver Billy Thomas. Stuart Gray third ahead of Mike Bell. Newcomer Stuart Adam in 5th ahead of Kevin Ford, Kieran Quirk, Paul Alexander, Anthony Cleal on his new chassis and then Chris Underhill. In Heat 2 it was Joey Foster taking the win once again, this time from Stuart Gray and Anthony Cleal. Kevin Ford in 4th on his blue return ahead of Paul Alexander, with Billy Thomas, Will Hollis, Kieran Quirk, Stuart Adam and Chris Underhill making up the top 10. In Heat 3 Anthony Cleal would take the win, this time from Joey Foster. Kevin Ford in 3rd ahead of Mike Bell and Billy Thomas. Stuart Gray finishing 6th ahead of Will Hollis, with Max Gunter, Stuart Adam and Alex Kemp making up the top 10. A good performance there from Kemp. With those 3 results in the books, Joey Foster is going to be lining up on pole position, the man in 3rd place in the championship. He's going to be joined on the front row by number 97 Stuart Gray. Anthony Cleal heads row 2 ahead of Billy Thomas. Kevin Ford lines up 5th on his Formula Blue return ahead of Mike Bell. Stuart Adams starting his first blue final in 7th ahead of Kieran Quirk, with Paul Alexander and Will Hollis lining up to round out the top 10. David Good in 11th ahead of Max Gunter, with Chris Underhill 13th ahead of Robin Stones and Steve Groves to complete the top 15. Alex Kemp, Rob Mortimer, Nigel Vickery, Ron Schoen and John Hartshorn ran out the top 20, ahead of Anthony Lee in his first race day, ahead of Fred Powell, with 3 non-starts at the back, Kevin O'Neill, Alex Fortune and Jack Baker. As the pack rounds Hanger Bend and heads down towards the cut-through, Joey Foster and Stuart Gray going to back the pack up there. It's a very tight affair up at the front. Big grid of 22 karts ready to go. And the lights are out and away we go, and we're on board with Paul Alexander. It's madness in front of us as we head down to pit bend. It's Foster leading from Gray and then 4 wide in behind. Quirk in the middle of there and everyone sails now round towards the complex. Back on board with Alexander, that's Max Gunter who's made a good start, and there's some standing water on the inside of turn 2. It was raining earlier today and that patch has seemingly never dried as the pack now heads up towards the end of the loop. It's Foster leading from Gray, Cleal, Ford, Bell, Adam, Thomas and Quirk. 3 wide in behind there with Alex Kemp and Steve Groves involved. He's now on board with Paul Alexander and Robin Stones in front of us going for the move, and he's spun. He's collected David Good, Paul Alexander involved as well, getting spun around. Looked like Alex Kemp getting delayed, but they've all gotten back up off the track. As down towards the chicane for the first time, Joey Foster's got a big lead through the chicane as he hits the curbs. Gray second, then Cleal, Ford, Bell, Adam, Thomas, Quirk, Gunter, Hollis and Groves going to be making up the top 10. It's Kieran Quirk looking at making the move against Billy Thomas down into pit bend. Nothing doing there though. Further back, that's Fred Powell making the move against Tony Lee, with Alex Kemp following through, and that's Mike Bell challenging Kevin Ford. He's going to switch back across the back, and now up the straight towards the exit of the loop is Bell down the inside of Kevin Ford for 4th place. Further back, Max Gunter making a move on Kieran Quirk. Billy Thomas challenging Stuart Adam as well, and Adam's going to hold off Thomas. Gunter's going to make the move in behind. He's followed by Quirk and Will Hollis. That's a very interesting group to watch. 3 rising stars. As Paul Alexander's got back up into the group. His next target is number 15 in front of us, Ron Schoen. As into the chicane, Billy Thomas slots a move up the inside of Stuart Adam. And Adam's going to get a poor run out. Through goes Max Gunter. Kieran Quirk challenging as well. Mike Bell challenging Anthony Cleal for 3rd. As Kieran Quirk slots a move past Stuart Adam. And Bell versus Cleal, these two 1 point separated at the head of the championship, so this is big. Bell looking to line up Cleal as he did Ford a lap ago, and he's going to move to the inside. On the run down to turn 4, Mike Bell's going to make the move up into 3rd place. So that will have major championship ramifications. Further back, Rob Mortimer attacking Nigel Vickery. And Will Hollis trying to make a move on Stuart Adam as they exit the loop and make the run up towards Hanger. Paul Alexander going to the inside of Ron Schoen, but he's not going to make that one. As into the chicane we go. Kevin Ford looking at the inside of Anthony Cleal, and they're going to run side by side through the chicane. That's going to really slow the pair of them. Ford's going to get the run out on exit, and Cleal's going to run him right to the white line. Ford looking back to the outside now, but Cleal defending it. That's Steve Groves looking at making the move on Stuart Adam, and he's done it. Further back, Paul Alexander up alongside Ron Schoen down into pit bend. Through goes Alexander. There's Fred Powell holding off Tony Lee as we're back on board with Rob Mortimer. Nigel Vickery ahead of us, and up the road that's Ford looking at Cleal. Doesn't look like he's going to make the move there. Mortimer still pressuring Vickery, and David Good chasing them down. But Anthony Cleal now leading this group that's now got Billy Thomas involved up towards Hanger. As here's the leader, Stuart Gray's visibly cutting that gap down against Joey Foster. Have to see how that progresses. There's Bell in 3rd. Then it's Cleal, Ford and Thomas. Then Gunter, Quirk, Hollis, Groves, and that's Chris Underhill looking down the inside of Stuart Adam. And a good move there from Underhill makes up a place. Kevin Ford switching back on the back of Anthony Cleal. He's really looking for a way past the number 1. There's John Hartshorn. And that's Paul Alexander looking down the inside of Alex Kemp, and he's made the move. There's Hollis all over the back of Quirk. Stuart Adam and Nigel Vickery now side by side, so Stuart Adam's falling back. He's going to defend the inside line. David Good looking in there as well against Rob Mortimer. As we hop back on board with Mortimer. Vickery thinking about the inside against Stuart Adam, but David Good challenging Rob Mortimer. Now John Hartshorn's involved. It's a 5-way fight now as they head up towards Hanger Bend. And here comes Billy Thomas looking to the inside of Anthony Cleal for the chicane. Cleal's going to cover that move, but Thomas has passed forward. In the group behind, Gunter, Quirk and Hollis are closing in, and Billy Thomas to the inside on pit bend. Anthony Cleal's going to make it late on the brakes and cover him off, but Foster's run wide, and that's why that's Stuart Gray's up the inside, so Stuart Gray making the move for the lead. And on the run down to turn 4, Gray's going to slot into the inside line, and Stuart Gray takes the lead of the race. Now can Foster fight back as they head up towards Hanger? Billy Thomas, Kevin Ford and Anthony Cleal still in battle as Thomas looking to the inside as they come off the loop. Steve Groves and Chris Underhill have tacked onto the back of this group, but now it's Foster down into the chicane. Stuart Gray leading the way through the right, through the left, through the right, and now down towards pit bend. Look at the run Gray has got, and Billy Thomas looking to the inside of Cleal, but once again Anthony Cleal covers him off. So they make the run through the chicane. There's the leaders battling. And here comes Billy Thomas down to the inside in pit bend, and he's going to make the move stick against Anthony Cleal. So Thomas up to 4th. Here's Paul Alexander up ahead. That's Rob Mortimer making the move on Stuart Adam. Alexander looking for the move as well. Oh, and in the background there, that's Ford and Cleal have made contact. Looked like Ford was going down the inside into turn 2. Maybe goes through that patch of standing water, and from there he's a passenger. That's going to drop both of them down as Paul Alexander passes Kevin Ford. There's Cleal. He's got back up and going. And that is Kevin Ford now in behind John Hartshorn. But for the lead, it's still bumper to bumper. Gray leading from Foster through the chicane. Looks like Foster gets a good run through the chicane, but the pickup of Gray gives him just enough of an edge to stay in the lead down to turn 1, but Foster going for the inside. Clips the curb. I think that killed his run a bit, and that's going to drop him behind. But here's David Good now to the inside of Stuart Adam in the chicane. Good makes the pass. There's Kevin Ford further back attacking John Hartshorn. He's now on board with Paul Alexander. He's going to slot a move past Stuart Adam as well. Ford following suit on Hartshorn. As for the lead, Stuart Gray heads Joey Foster up towards Hanger Bend, starting to break away a little bit. Kieran Quirk and Will Hollis in battle. And here's Paul Alexander. He's making a charge against David Good into turn 4. Nothing doing there though. Good's going to hold him off. But as they come to exit the loop, Good rushes out for the racing line. Alexander dives in, makes the pass, and now David Good has Kevin Ford on his tail as the leaders round pit bend. Here's Max Gunter. He's under pressure now from Will Hollis. Kieran Quirk and Chris Underhill in there as well. There's Billy Thomas ahead of them, and Max Gunter now overtaken by Will Hollis down the inside into pit bend. Good move from Hollis. So now we jump on board with Joey Foster. He's pressuring Stuart Gray as they go round the exit of the loop. Foster brought that gap down in the last lap as they head up towards Hanger Bend. These two battling away for the lead. Not for the first time. Back a few months ago at Mansell Raceway, they were joined by Anthony Cleal. It was Stuart Gray who came out on top then, but who will come out on top this time around as they go down across the line. That's the last lap board out, so one more time to go. It's Gray leading from Foster. Further back, that's Chris Underhill all over the back of Kieran Quirk. Quirk looking at Max Gunter. Steve Groves trying to get involved as well, as here go the leaders through the complex. Foster looking to set up for a good run, and he got a good run, but Stuart Gray's going to defend the inside line, and Foster going to have to switch to the outside. Round turn 4 they go. Further back, here's the battle in behind. Kieran Quirk looking to set up against Max Gunter, and he's going to move to the inside. Oh, and Gunter's going to beat into the apex. Quirk's going to have no run. Here comes Underhill. But out of the Hanger Bend, Stuart Gray's going to cover the inside into the chicane. It's Gray leading from Foster. Can Foster get the run on the way out? No, he can't. Stuart Gray going to take the win. Both hands in the air in delight. Down into pit bend. Great performance there by Stuart Gray, but the racing's not done. That's Chris Underhill. He's passed Kieran Quirk on this last half a lap. Steve Groves in behind. There's Anthony Cleal. And here's Paul Alexander. He's on the tail of Rob Mortimer. Mortimer likewise on Vickery. Vickery's going to run defensive to the line, and Vickery's going to hold off Mortimer. Alexander and Kevin Ford both in tight behind. Then Stuart Adams going to hold off John Hartshorn. Ron Schoen's going to hold off a recovering Robin Stoddart Stones. And Tony Lee's going to finish in touch, so a good performance for his first race day. And Fred Powell's going to limp to the end of the race after developing a problem about halfway through. The results are going to stand Stuart Gray the winner of the race, 2/10 ahead of Joey Foster. Mike Bell in 3rd, Billy Thomas in a good 4th in his return to Formula Blue. Max Gunter's going to round out the top 5 ahead of Chris Underhill and Kieran Quirk. Steve Groves is going to finish 8th ahead of Anthony Cleal, and Will Hollis going to drop to 10th place after a 5-second drop nose. Nigel Vickery is going to be 11th ahead of Rob Mortimer and Paul Alexander. David Good's going to finish 14th ahead of Stuart Adam, with John Hartshorn finishing 16th. Kevin Ford's going to drop to 17th after a drop nose for the contact with Anthony Cleal, ahead of Alex Kemp, with Ron Show and Robin Stoddart Stones, Tony Lee and Fred Powell finishing in behind. What that'll do to the championship standings, Joey Foster's going to jump to the lead of the table ahead of Mike Bell, who's even on points with Anthony Cleal, so 4 points separating the top 3 into the final round. Kevin O'Neill's going to use his drop option to stay in 4th ahead of Paul Alexander. Steve Groves 6th ahead of Chris Underhill. Max Gunter, Ron Schoen and Rob Mortimer rounding out the top 10. David Good's going to be 11th ahead of John Hartshorn, David Waldron, Alex Kemp and Tom Parker completing the top 15. Kieran Quirk going to move up to 16th ahead of Harry Smithson, with Alex Fortune, Robin Stoddart Stones and Fred Powell making up the top 20. In the Blue Masters standings, Joey Foster leads the way for 2 points ahead of Anthony Cleal. Kevin O'Neill is in 3rd ahead of Paul Alexander and Steve Groves. Chris Underhill 6th ahead of Rob Mortimer, David Waldron, Ron Schoen and David Good completing the top 10. John Hartshorn 11th ahead of Alex Kemp, Chris Lord and Alex Fortune even on points with Robin Stoddart Stones to round out the top 15. In the Blue Veteran standings, it's Anthony Cleal leading the way. Kevin O'Neill in 2nd ahead of Paul Alexander. Steve Groves and Chris Underhill are going to round out the top 5. with Rob Mortimer, David Good, Ron Schoen, John Hartshorn and David Waldron completing the top 10, with Chris Lord in behind ahead of Robbie Stones, Fred Powell, Stuart Gray and Kevin Ford making up the top 15. In the Blue Legend standings, Kevin O'Neill's going to use his drop option, he's going to retain the lead. Chris Underhill in second ahead of David Good, Ron Schoen and John Hartshorn. Chris Lord sixth ahead of Robin Stoddart Stuart Gray, Mark Cook, Mike Watson, Adrian Helps. Pick the class. And a win on the day moves Rob Mortimer into the lead of the blue top weights by a single point ahead of Ron Schoen. Tom Parker in third ahead of Fred Powell, Phil Shears, Paul Dybel, Mark Cook and Mike Watts. That's going to be all for today from Mansell Raceway. Join us next time for the season finale, the Matthew Percy Memorial Trophy and round 5 of the two Counties Kart Club Championship from Clay Pigeon. Until then, goodbye.
And in 5th place was number 23, Christian. Hey! He's one of us, try. Billy Thomas. Hey! Oh, sorry, Hank. Number 2, Michael Bell. Hey! All right. In 2nd place, number 66, Joey Foster. Good, Joe. And in 1st place, but he's had to sadly go because the home closes at around about 7 and he wouldn't have got back in time otherwise, was 97 Stuart Gray. Well done! Well done, lads! I can tell you he was checked for Horlicks before he went.